Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about something that's robbing you blind. Not the bills in your mailbox, not the credit card interest rates, not the taxes. I'm talking about the silent thief, your limiting beliefs. Because I've got news for you, the real debt keeping you broke isn't financial, it's mental. See, debt is more than dollars. It's anything you owe that you're not paying back. And when you're living with limiting beliefs, you're in massive debt to your own potential. You owe yourself dreams that went unpaid. You time you wasted playing small. You owe greatness buried under excuses. That's a mountain of compound interest right there. You believe you're not good enough, not smarted enough. That's debt. Limiting beliefs are more destructive than financial debt. This might sound counterintuitive at first because when people think of debt, they picture unpaid bills, overdue notices, or mounting interest rates. Those things are real and they're stressful. But what's far more damaging, far more crippling, is the silent, invisible debt that people carry inside their minds every single day. Limiting beliefs don't send you letters in them. They don't call your phone, but they collect day after day with interest, robbing you of your future, your peace, your purpose, and your wealth. A limiting belief is any thought that tells you what you owe, can't do, who you're not, what you'll never be. It's the idea that success is for other people, that you're too old, too young, too late, too early average, or too broken to do something meaningful. And once that seed gets planted, it grows roots. Those roots dig deep into your decisions, your relationships, your career, and your finances. They choke out progress. They distort your view of what's possible. They convince you that settling is smart and that reaching is reckless. Now compare that to financial debt. Financial debt is situational. It's external. It can be measured. You owed on $10,000. Okay, that's a number that can create a plan. You consolidate, you can pay it off. But a limiting belief isn't on a spreadsheet. You can't refinance it. You can't negotiate the terms. It's internal, emotional, and spiritual. And here's the worst part, and most people don't even know they're in it. They walk around every day making decisions based on invisible restrictions. They say no to opportunities, relationships, and growth, not because they're not ready, but they believe they're not worthy. Limiting beliefs create a poverty mindset. They teach you to survive instead of thrive. They whisper that risk is dangerous, that failure is fatal, and that dreaming is foolish. So you start playing not to lose instead of playing to win. And just like financial debt, limiting beliefs accrue interest. One missed opportunity turns into a pattern. One moment of hesitation becomes a habit. Over time, you're not just avoiding failure, you're avoiding life. You become an expert in excuses and a novice in action. And the consequences of limiting beliefs are generational. Financial debt can be inherited, but so can mental debt. The children grow up watching parents talk themselves out of purpose. They hear phrases like, we can't afford that, or that's just not for people like us, or you better play it safe. Those phrases become scripts. Scripts become stories. And before long, you have entire families living in invisible prisons, handing down chains instead of keys. What makes this kind of debt so dangerous is how convincing it is. It masquerades as common sense. It disguises itself as wisdom. It uses your past against you. If you failed once, it says, see, you're not cut out for that. If someone rejected you, it says, better stay small. And every time you accept those lies, they see the strength of you pay a price, a little less courage, a little less faith, Joy. Yeah. People go to work every day and give their energy to companies, but won't invest 10 minutes in transforming their thinking. They'll budget for a car payment. They see a phone bill, a mortgage, but not for coaching, books, or mentorship. Why? Because somewhere deep down, a limiting belief says that won't work for you. That belief is the real debt, and the worst part is you're the one co-signing it every day. You are in debt to your own potential. This is not the kind of debt you can calculate with a formula or write down in a ledger. It's the debt of unused gifts, unspoken ideas, unlived dreams, and untapped capacity. Every day that passes without you fully stepping into who you were created to be adds to that debt. And it doesn't just sit there quietly. It weighs on you. It shows up in frustration, anxiety, procrastination, boredom, and burnout. You weren't designed to merely exist. You were designed to expand, to multiply, to produce. When you don't do that, you feel the tension because deep down, your soul knows something's been left on the table. Potential is a divine deposit. It's the raw material for your purpose. You were given gifts and abilities that were never meant to sit idle. They're supposed to be developed, multiplied, and used to make an impact. But when you ignore that, when you suppress your talent or play small out of fear or convenience, you begin accumulating spiritual and emotional debt. You owe the world the best version of yourself. And when you hold back, you're not just robbing yourself, you're robbing everyone you were meant to help. Think of a person who's been working the same job for years, not because they love it or grow in it, but because it's safe. Think of someone who an idea that could have changed their industry, but they let it die in a notebook. Think of someone who constantly says, one day I'll start, or I could have done that, or it's too late now. That's not just regret. That's unpaid potential. That's talent sitting in collections. And the longer it sits there, the more it costs you. We were made to create, to lead, build, to serve, to innovate. And when we suppress that calling, when we reduce ourselves to just getting by, We're in breach of a deeper contract, one that says you were put here with something unique to contribute. Most people don't need more time, more money, or more resources. They need clarity and pay back what they owe to their purpose. They need to stop hiding behind circumstances and start honoring what's already inside of them. Unfilled potential is the heaviest burden a person can carry. It's why people can have success on paper but still feel empty. It's why someone with a good income and a nice house can still wake up every day with a sense of dissatisfaction. Because success without fulfillment is just another form of debt. It means you're living beneath what you were made for. It means you're producing results, but not your results, the ones that reflect your real calling and your true capacity. And let's be clear, being in debt to your potential doesn't mean you're lazy. It means there's a mismatch between what you can do and what you are doing. It means your vision has been capped by fear or fatigue. It means you're living by default, not design. And the strength of the end design always demands alignment with who you really are, not who the world told you to be. There are books that haven't been written, businesses that haven't been launched, movements that haven't been started. They strength and inventions that haven't been built, not because people aren't capable, because they are in debt to what they could become. They think they're playing it safe, but really they're paying with their peace. They think they're avoiding risk, but really they're accumulating interest on dreams deferred. Every moment spent ignoring your calling is a moment borrowed from your future. You're not just staying the same, you're falling behind. The real enemy is the inner me. It's not your competition, not the economy, not your background, not your boss, and not your upbringing. The greatest threat to your success isn't outside of you. It's inside. It's that quiet voice that questions everything you try to do, that second guesses every step, that whispers fear in the middle of your faith. It's the internal narrative that tells you to play small, to wait, to settle, to conform. And as that voice is louder than your purpose, you will always lie below your potential. That inner voice is subtle. It doesn't always shout, but it speaks with authority. It uses your past as evidence, your failures as proof, and your fears as logic. It reminds you of the mistakes you made and convinces you they define you. It tells you that you're not ready, not qualified, not connected, not worthy. And the more you listen to it, the more it becomes the script for your life. You start responding to opportunities with hesitation. You begin filtering your dreams through fear. You water down your vision because you don't believe you're the person who can carry it. That's how powerful the inner me is. It doesn't need to physically stop you. It just needs to persuade you to stop yourself. The inner me is masterful at self-sabotage. It will disguise doubt as wisdom. It will make indecision sound like caution. It will make excuses feel like strategy. And if you're not careful, you'll spend your entire life obeying a version of yourself that was shaped by fear, failure, or someone else's opinion. We all have moments where we feel resistance, but that resistance is often a signal, not a stop sign. It's the gap between who you are and who you're becoming. The inner me hates that gap because it doesn't want to grow. Growth is uncomfortable. It requires letting go of what's familiar. It demands that you challenge your default settings. So instead of leaning into growth, the inner me suggests retreat. It tells you to delay until you feel ready, even though readiness is a result of action, not a prerequisite for it. When you begin to challenge that inner voice, it fights back. It throws old insecurities at you. It brings up every time you failed, every time someone rejected you, every time things didn't work out. But what it doesn't tell you is that all of those experiences were preparation. They weren't proof of your limitations. They were training for your elevation. The problem is not that you failed. The problem is that you interpreted your failure as a verdict instead of a lesson. The inner me thrives in silence and secrecy. As long as you keep it hidden, it stays in control. But the moment you bring it into the light, through awareness, through honesty, through accountability, you take back your power. You begin to realize that the voice inside your head isn't always telling the truth. It's often just repeating patterns you picked up from trauma, from culture, from people who didn't believe in themselves. And if you don't break those patterns, they become prisons. Over time, you begin to see that the real war is internal. The battlefield, the belief system. The weapon is your mindset. Victory comes when you align your thinking with your purpose, not your past. The more you identify the lies the inner me is telling, the more you can replace them with truth, not motivational fluff, but truth rooted in your identity and in your assignment. You weren't created to be ruled by insecurity. You weren't designed to bow to fear. You were made to lead, to rise, to build, to expand. But none of that happens until you win the war within. Belief shift precedes financial shift. The transformation of your money begins with the transformation of your mind. Most people want more income, but they never examine the belief system that shapes their relationship with money. They see the strength, that they look for strategies, tactics, and opportunities, but ignore the internal dialogue that says, I don't deserve wealth, or I'm just not good with money. As long as those beliefs are in place, even the best financial opportunities won't produce lasting change yet, because money follows mindset. Without a renewed belief system, financial growth is temporary, inconsistent, or impossible. When someone grows up hearing phrases like money doesn't grow on trees, or we can't afford that, or rich people are greedy, those statements take root. Over time, they form an identity, one that sees struggle as normal and wealth as suspicious. That identity dictates financial behavior. It determines how much risk you take, how you invest, how you sell, how you spend, and how you give. Until that belief system changes, no amount of financial literacy will shift your reality. You can know it and still not do it because your subconscious mind will always fight to remain consistent with your internal beliefs. Some people are stuck in cycles of lack, not because of lack of effort, but because of mental agreements they made years ago. They agreed that success is for other people. They agreed that money is hard to come by. They see the strength of it. They agreed the type of a person who gets ahead. And those agreements became the foundation of their financial lives. You don't rise above the level of your self-concept. You live at the level of what you truly believe is possible for you. So when a person shifts their belief, they unlock access to possibilities they couldn't even see before. Financial strategy without belief alignment is like planting seed in concrete. The seed might be good, but the environment can't support growth. In the same way, you can take a great business model or a solid job opportunity and sabotage it with scarcity thinking. You underprice yourself. You avoid asking for what you're worth. You hesitate to invest in your growth. You stay small, not because it's safe, not because it's familiar. That's what limiting beliefs do. They make dysfunction feel like home. And until you challenge those beliefs, you'll keep circling the same financial wilderness. A belief shift begins with awareness. You have to confront the thoughts that have been operating in the background unchecked. You have to listen to your language because your words expose your beliefs. Phrases like, I could never afford that, or I'm just trying to get by, I'm just casual, they're confessions. And over time, they become commands your subconscious mind obeys. Changing your beliefs means changing your language, your standards, and changing your identity. Not pretending to be wealthy, but beginning to think like someone who is a good steward, a wise builder, and a confident creator. Once that shift happens, the external begins to follow. You begin to recognize opportunities instead of rejecting them. You begin to move with clarity instead of hesitation. You start asking better questions, taking bolder action, and managing resources with intention. Financial growth becomes a byproduct, not the primary feat. You're no longer chasing money. You're attracting it through alignment with who you've become. Because money doesn't change people, it amplifies who they are. And if who you are is built on a foundation of limiting beliefs, more money just magnifies the dysfunction. But when belief aligns with purpose and purpose aligns with action, wealth becomes inevitable. Not just financial wealth, but the wealth of peace, impact, and fulfillment. It all begins with the shift in how you see yourself, what you believe is possible, and what you believe you're worthy of receiving. Your identity sets your income ceiling. The amount of money you attract, manage, and multiply will never rise consistently above the level of how you see yourself. Identity is the internal thermostat of your financial life. It's not about what you do occasionally. It's about who you believe you are consistently. If you see yourself as someone who always struggles, that belief will shape your habits, your decisions, and your financial reality. Even if you stumble into a windfall or a high-paying opportunity, your identity will pull you back to what feels familiar. People often focus on behavior, but behavior follows belief, and belief is rooted in identity. That's why two people can have the same resource, the same education, and the same starting point, but produce completely different results and believes they are a leader, a builder, a creator. The other believes they are lucky to just get by. The first person takes risks with purpose. The second person avoids them out of fear. The difference is not an opportunity, it's an identity. They see the strength. If you identify as someone who isn't good with money, you'll find ways to reinforce that identity. You'll miss due dates. You'll avoid budgeting. You'll ignore your bank account. Not because you're incapable, but because your behavior must align with your identity. On the other hand, if you identify as someone who is financially wise and disciplined, you'll naturally make choices that reflect that belief. You'll seek education, mentorship, and systems to support your growth. You'll operate from a sense of stewardship, not survival. Many people have goals that are in conflict with their identity. They say they want wealth, but they still see themselves as broke. They see the strength to want freedom, but they still identify as a victim of their past. As long as your identity doesn't support your goal, you'll self-sabotage every time you get close. It's not always conscious. Sometimes it looks like procrastination or distraction, but underneath it all is a subconscious desire to stay consistent with who you believe you are. The identity you carry is shaped by your environment, your experiences, and your repeated thoughts. If you grew up around lack, you may have unknowingly developed an identity rooted in scarcity. If your early experiences with money involved stress or shame, you may have linked your self-worth to financial struggle. But just because you were shaped by it doesn't mean you have to stay in it. Identity is not permanent. It can be rewritten, but only if you're willing to confront the beliefs that create it. Rewriting your identity requires more than affirmation. It requires alignment. You must begin acting in accordance with the identity you want to build. If you want to be a wealth builder, you must take action like one. That means managing your money with purpose, investing in your growth, and refusing to tolerate habits that no longer serve you. It's not about pretending to be someone else. It's about becoming more of who you really are without the limitations that were placed on you. Every time you step into a higher version of yourself, your income capacity expands. That's because money flows through value and value is multiplied through identity. When you truly see yourself as someone who can solve problems, create impact, and lead with integrity, you show up differently, you speak differently, you attract different opportunities, you set different standards, and those standards shape your income ceiling. There are people with less skill, less experience, and fewer resources who are doing more financially because their identity gave them permission to. They believed they were worthy before the evidence showed up. They acted from belief, not just from circumstances. And as a result, their income caught up to their identity. Break mental bondage to unlock real freedom. Real freedom isn't about how much money you make, how much time you have, or even how much control you gain over your circumstances. Real freedom begins in the mind. As long as you are in bondage mentally, every area of life will reflect that captivity. You can have financial resources and still live in fear. You can have opportunity and still walk in hesitation. That you can be surrounded by abundance and still operate from a place of lack because the prison isn't physical, it's psychological. Mental bondage shows up in many forms. It looks like perfectionism that paralyzes progress. It looks like self-doubt that cancels decisions. It looks fear of judgment that silences your voice. It looks like overthinking that delays action, and it often disguises itself as logic or responsibility. People will rationalize their limitations with very intelligent language. They'll call it being realistic or just being cautious, when in fact it's just bondage with a professional mask on. The challenge is you don't know how bound you are until you try to go beyond where you've been. Freedom isn't proven by how comfortable you are. It's tested by how willing you are to step into discomfort to pursue growth. When your mind is free, their fear doesn't hold the same weight, rejection the sting the same way. Failure doesn't stop you, it educates you. But when your mind is bound, everything becomes a threat. A new idea feels risky, a conversation feels intimidating, a step forward feels like too much to handle, and you find yourself stuck in cycles, reliving the same season over and over again with different packaging. Mental bondage is subtle because it's rooted in agreement. Somewhere along the way, you agreed with a lie. Maybe someone told you that you weren't smart enough, talented enough, or deserving enough. Maybe you failed once and you agreed that success isn't for people like you. These agreements become internal contracts, and as long as those contracts are active, you unconsciously limit what you allow yourself to pursue, receive, and achieve. You won't build what you don't believe you can handle. They see the strength that you won't ask for what you don't believe you're worth. You won't become what you leave already are. The key to breaking mental bondage is replacing those false agreements with truth. Not hype, not slogans, but grounded truth about who you are and what you carry. You were created with purpose. You were given vision for a reason, and your capacity is bigger than your current reality. But you have to confront the thought patterns that keep you boxed in. That means challenging your assumptions, interrogating your excuses, and rewiring the way you think. Because transformation doesn't start with behavior. It starts with belief. You don't need more motivation. You need mental emancipation. That's the moment when you stop asking for permission to be great. They see the strength of that's stop negotiating with fear. That's when you stop outsourcing your worth to other people's opinions. When your mind gets free, your decisions change. You stop shrinking around small thinkers. You stop tolerating toxic patterns. You stop managing dysfunction. You start moving with clarity, intention, and authority. A free mind is dangerous to mediocrity. It disrupts generational cycles. It builds where others settle. It speaks where others stay silent. It leads where others follow. And the moment you free your mind, you begin to change the atmosphere around you. Your standards shift. Your habits elevate. Your environment upgrades. Not because the world around you suddenly changed, because your mind did. The external always responds to the internal. What you allow, what you pursue, and what you create all flow from your mental state.